Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how I went about completing this waterfall skirtboard. We'll be focusing on not just how to do this, but how to do it quickly so that you can make money and be profitable whenever you're given jobs like this. I'll show you my secret weapons that I use that help me take the quality and speed of an install like this to another level. So I hope you join me on this one. Even if you never do a waterfall skirtboard, there's going to be a lot of techniques that you can apply to a wide range of carpentry projects that are going to make you a better carpenter. So as you can see here, I've got my lines, and this outside line represents my 1x4 and where I need to make those miters as this goes up. So all I did was I just made a very simple jig with a piece of 1x4. This represents my piece that will be wrapping around here, and then another piece just to hold it where it needs to go. So I can just set that on here. I'll put my level on it, and then I'll mark across the bottom all the way up. And then what I'm doing here, I want the front edge of this piece of 1x6 to be further out, so that I'm actually a little bit closer to being flush with the front edge of my framing nosing. So I'm using a 3/8 piece just to offset this out further. So I put that 3/8 piece behind there, get it level, and I'm making my marks. So now from this point, I can go along and I can take my measurements and start assembling this whole thing in sections and putting it together. Just a note regarding the cut list, you can see I actually drew out the stringer or the skirtboard piece, and I numbered each piece. That way it helps me keep things straight a little bit easier. And then I've got my measurements for each piece, which represent the long to short point measurements on all these pieces. So this will help me stay organized and get this cut list done without a bunch of errors. For the apprentices out there, risk mitigation is a huge thing, and it's a lesson you've got to understand if you want to be an efficient carpenter. Pre-assembly is really important if you want to be fast, but it can also be a disaster if you make a mistake. There's a big difference between cutting a piece wrong that'll cost you 5 minutes and cutting a piece wrong that'll cost you 5 hours or 5 days. In a unit like this, if I mess up one piece, it can cost me a lot of time. So I want to make sure my cut list is right, that it's ordered well, and then I'm double checking myself as I go throughout the cutting process. Now comes the fun part. So I asked myself, as I knew I had this job coming, what was going to be the fastest, most efficient way to get all of these miters pre-assembled without having to wait a long time on them. So let's run through our options on joinery. CA glue, not going to be strong enough for real wood. Pocket hole screws could do that, but it's going to take too long. Biscuits and regular PVA glue, that could work, but also probably going to take too long, going to be dry time involved. So that leaves me with the one and only HIPUR, which is going to be the strongest and fastest method to do this. So now you remember what I was just talking about with the risk mitigation and double checking yourself? It's a smart move right here to take the piece you just pre-assembled and make sure it lines up with all your marks, and you're not going to have any issues. This skirtboard is really long, so I'm tackling it in 3 different sections. Here you see I've got this piece all assembled. The back is all numbered and in order. It's sanded, so now it's ready for the 1x6 pieces to be added to it. HIPUR adhesive cures very quickly and is extremely strong. It's perfect for this type of job because it allows me to just keep working right through the whole process directly after I get done pre-assembling this whole section without having to worry about it breaking on accident. Before I get started chopping this big 1x6 up into pieces, it's going to be easiest to mark my reveal line now whenever it's one continuous piece. So I just made a rabbet and a piece of scrap board, and I can mark my 1/4 inch reveal line with a pencil, and it goes pretty quick. Chopping this skirtboard up, I'm just doing math in my head. I know I need about 8.5 rise and 11.5 run, so I can do that in my head just by marking 8.5, 20, 28.5, 40, 48.5, 60, so on and so forth. As I chop this up, I'm going to do so. That way my grain stays in the same direction, so I've got a nice grain wrap going all the way up the stair. So basically cut, stack, cut, stack, cut, stack, keeping everything going in the same direction. Being that my workstation is very close to the miter saw, it's going to make a lot more sense to mark and cut each piece here. It's going to be more accurate than making a cut list. When I thought through the design on this skirt board, I intentionally kept the 1x6 to 5.5 inches. That way I would be able to cut all these pieces vertically on the miter saw. It's just a lot easier than tilting it back and forth using the bevel. I get asked a lot about my miter saw preferences. I use the DW780. I prefer to have a 12-inch saw. I've found that if you put a good blade on a saw, it'll cut very accurately, even whenever it's a 12-inch. Also, I need a slider for the kind of work that I do. The DW780 is a workhorse, and it's been really good for me. It's all I use. And I don't want to hear anything from you festival guys in the comments section. I burned up 2 Capexes within 3 years. They just aren't saws built for real true production trim carpentry. Now it's time to start nailing everything together. You see here I got my Babe Bot glue bottle. That's the one that lives in my tool belt. By the way, I'll have a video on my tool belt coming out soon. I keep getting a lot of questions about it and why I switched from the Diamondback, but that'll be coming. Then I'm also using the Senko 2-inch 23 gauge pin nailer. Senko recently sent me this. I've had a couple other pin nailers I haven't been happy with. Haven't been happy with Grex or DeWalt. So far this Senko has been great, and definitely appreciate Senko sending that out to me. It's been a good gun so far. Strategy here is to assemble about 3 to 5 pieces at a time. That seems to work well, and that way you're not running into the pitfall of cumulative errors. Kind of starting from the middle and working both directions will help prevent that. And as you see me turning my head and looking under, I'm looking for that 1/4-inch reveal pencil line, which I marked on the board before I started cutting it up. Makes it a lot easier doing it this way. That way you can use both your hands to position things, and you're not trying to use a hand to use a gauge block or measure something. Hey, by the way, if you're enjoying this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button, give it a like. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe. We'd love to have you. And the tools I'm using, the links are available in the notes below. Those are affiliate links and help support the channel. Using those is much appreciated. When I do stairs, I use lots and lots of PL Premium. Make sure that everything stays nice and solid, especially considering I'm going to be mounting steel posts on top of this stuff. Now, whenever it comes to the joinery on this 1x4, I could have used a biscuit, glue, and pinch dogs, but I like to live life on the edge, so I went ahead and decided to use HIPUR and just try and throw a clam clamp on it really quickly. With HIPUR, the disadvantage is that as soon as that hot glue leaves the end of that gun, it's starting to cool and interact with the moisture in the air, which causes it to cure, so you only have seconds to get that job done, and if you don't, get it together, it'll compromise the strength of the joint. A little trick with clam clamps, whenever you know you're going to need a really strong bite, hammer them in a little bit so the teeth grab a little bit more, and it'll really create a lot more pressure whenever you turn that cam action in the lever. Next up, going to be just nailing everything off. 15 gauge nails, 2.5 inch long. Hitachi/Metabo nailer is my favorite. You'll notice I'm using my little torpedo level as I go to try to ensure that everything is as level and plumb as possible, and also lining up with my pencil lines. So I fully realize a lot of you who are watching this video have probably never heard of HIPUR adhesive or used it. I can't tell you enough how much I recommend it personally. I use it for almost all my mitered window casing jobs. It's extremely strong and it sets up almost instantly. They say it's a 30-second set time, but you find you put a clamp on it, and now by the time that I've got this clamped up, this clamp can easily be taken off, and I don't have to worry about this breaking in any way. It's going to be very strong. With these clam clamps, it creates no gap on the glue line, so that's really great. And you can see what I'm doing is I'm putting the clamp on it and I'm giving it about half of a twist just to set the pins And what that'll do is help me get it aligned really quickly. Whenever I put the piece back on, I'll go back and forth once just to help thin the glue out because it is a little bit thick. And then I can just twist that on and it's good to go. Move on to the next piece, like so. So I can't recommend this product enough. If you really think about it on this application, on this stair skirt board like I'm doing here, how much different would my workflow be if I was using biscuits and just regular wood glue? I'd be waiting for things to dry. I wouldn't have that instant strength. This is just so much superior. Any cost in the adhesive or the gun is just easily made up just extremely quickly. It's got a great ROI. So highly recommend it. You can purchase it through the links on my Amazon store or the links in the video notes below, and that helps support this free content and it's much appreciated. So definitely click through on those links and add some stuff to your cart once in a while to help support the channel, and I really appreciate that. Also, the clamps that I'm using are called clam clamps, like the sea creature clam, and they can be purchased from miteredclamp.com. Google it, you should be able to find it. I think you usually need to call him to order these clamps, and he does not ship to Canada. However, I have heard other guys that have used package forwarding services in the United States just to forward their orders on to Canada, and that has worked out for them. By the way, I also used to always carry 16 clam clamps because I had to wait on glue to dry. Since I started using HIPUR adhesive a couple years ago, I never carry more than 4 clamps because that's all you need to do a window. So the HIPUR combo with the clam clamps is absolutely incredible. And now we are on to the moment of truth, final skirtboard section ready to go in. Just laying down my PL Premium adhesive. I prefer the big tubes, by the way. They go a lot further, it's less messing around with reloading, and I find they ooze less than the small tubes. Here I'm just going to hit that miter again with the HIPUR and get ready to move as fast as I can. You'll notice here that I left off my top pieces of 1x4 and 1x6. That's because those are going to need to be precisely fit, and it's going to be much easier to do that just one piece at a time after the whole skirtboard section is installed versus trying to get that just right on the front end and installing it with the entire skirtboard section. I'm taking a lot of care here with my torpedo level to make sure I'm getting everything as level and plumb as possible. It was fighting me a little bit, so it's really easy just to grab some cedar shims and jam those accordingly underneath certain areas to get things leveled out. And that's going to help down the road whenever I have to mount my steel posts on top of these things. From a labor perspective, I was pretty surprised at my time on this thing. It didn't take me any longer to do this than it normally would with your typical false tread end caps, so that was a nice surprise. However, I absolutely got killed on my steel post and handrail installation time. I found that there was a lot of insider knowledge that I did not have whenever it came to installing this particular system of steel posts on a rake with intermediate posts. And you'll see the handrail drops with the handrail here. It took a lot to get figured out what I needed to do to make all the cables line up and all that jazz. But I'll probably have a video coming on that, so stay tuned for that. You'll learn a lot if you ever install one of those systems. Thanks for watching, guys. If you're not a subscriber, be sure to subscribe for more content like this. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to help support the channel, the easiest thing to do is to buy the tools via the links in the notes. That's how I get my support. And you'll also find the links to HIPUR and all the tools that I use down there. So hope it helps, and thanks for watching.